Hello and welcome to the April 2021 edition of Readings at Home. This is our video recording that's taking the place for the time being of our monthly event, Readings at Seksan. My name, if you don't know me, is Sharon Bakar, and today we have 5 very interesting writers with a Malaysian connection who have work to share with us. I'm recording this in my garden, so if you hear the occasional bird or cat or noise from the workmen next door, please forgive that. June Adeline Corpus is a Sabahan who now resides in England, having spent the last 45 years of her life there as a student and then as a professional in the banking industry. On retirement, encouraged by her family and her curiosity about the stories she heard as a child, June launched into researching the history of the Pryors, an English couple who lived in North Borneo in the latter part of the 19th century. She found a treasure trove of information in the archives in the UK and in Sabah, letters and manuscripts that formed the basis of her book, Reflections of a Curious Victorian Lady in North Borneo, the biography of Ada Blanche Pryor. June is also an aspiring artist, having taken up drawing and painting much later in life. Her work has been shown in many exhibitions in the UK, including the Royal Academy Summer Exhibition, the Royal West of England Academy, and the Mall Galleries. June has illustrated the book with her etchings of 19th century Sandakan alongside watercolour sketches by William Prettyman, a resident of the west coast of North Borneo in the late 1870s. Here's June.
Hello, I'm June, and I'm delighted to be able to read to you today from Reflections of a Curious Victorian Lady in North Borneo. I will be reading excerpts from the biography of Ada Pryor, written by myself, and also from one of Ada's stories. Ada Pryor, for those of you who don't know, was the wife of William Pryor, the first white resident of the east coast of North Borneo. And here is my first reading. My interest in Ada Blanche Pryor, I initially thought, began when I discovered a box of her manuscripts at the National Archives in Kew. I started reading, then transcribing her sometimes indecipherable handwriting, and soon became totally captivated by her stories. I then began to wonder what Ada Pryor was really like as a middle-class Victorian lady in North Borneo in the later part of the 19th century. The more I researched her life, the more I began to realize the magnitude of this unusual lady's influence on me and my family, the Dominic Clan. I am June Adeline Corpus, granddaughter of Pongolo Stanislaus Dominic, to whom William and Ada Pryor were very caring and loving guardians from when he was age 8 or 9 to when he was 23, when the Pryors left Borneo. He was of Suluk origin, but he became so quintessentially English under the parental care of the Pryors, and he was to pass this down to his 11 surviving children. My mother, Rosalind Violet Corpus née Dominic, was his 11th child. My connection with Ada Pryor began soon after I was born, or rather when I was named. My second name, Adeline, spelled with an A rather than an E, having been derived from Adelaide, which in turn was derived from the name Ada. Such was the influence of the Pryors on Pongolo, that he named his third daughter Adelaide Rose and his fifth daughter Beatrice Ursula Blanche, after his beloved guardian and the huge estate that they owned in Sandakan. I always thought that Adelaide was such a fuddy-duddy name and would rarely use it, and only in formal occasions such as passport applications. But now I realize I was named after this extraordinary lady who, although Victorian in her upbringing, was anything but. In her curiosity and a sense of adventure, who was kind and loving with a very deep appreciation for everything in her adoptive country. I've decided that using my full name is relevant in the context of this book. Also, it was the English influence in North Borneo and the Englishness in our family, inherited from the Pryors, that brought me to England, initially to further my education. I became a professional in the financial services industry and have now made England my permanent home. This book is my way of reconnecting with Sabah, a homecoming, so to speak, after being away for so long, over 40 years. And now I will read you the conclusion of Ada's biography. Ada Blanche Pryor's life in North Borneo revolved around her husband William, whom she adored and whom she supported throughout their life together. She supported his ventures into plantation agriculture and advocated his views on Mat Saleh and Panglima Ijau. But most of all, she lovingly nursed him throughout his illness and was a loyal and dedicated companion to him to the very end. But she was much more than that. She was a loving and affectionate parent to her wards, Pongolo, my grandfather, and another boy called Bani Su Ayin. She was a devoted and thoughtful sister, daughter, and aunt to her family, a kind and warm-hearted friend to those she met, a grateful client to her advisors, and a considerate mem to her servants, and a key player in Sandakan's social and philanthropic scene. But what she was not to know was the profound emotional, social, and intellectual impact he was to have on Pongolo, instilling in him English values and behaviors, a long and lasting legacy that he was to pass down to his descendants. I am not just her namesake. I felt drawn to England because of a subconscious influence which persuaded me to move here and to explore it with the same intensive inquisitiveness that she did in North Borneo all of those years ago. It was also this influence that inspired me to embark upon this biographical study, which I hope will be a fitting tribute to this curious and remarkable Victorian lady. And now I will read you from one of Ada's short stories. It's called A Lady's Notes on Sandakan Daily Life, and it was published in the Xmas issue of the British North Borneo Herald in November 1895. At the peep of dawn, life begins to stir, for we are all early risers, and there's no lying in bed after the sun is up. As twilight is of short duration in the evening, so does day burst upon us in like manner, the first streaks of pale light in the eastern sky being quickly followed by the bright upshooting rays of the glorious sun. The first herald of the coming day is the buzzing of a great bumblebee as he sallies forth in quest of his morning meal, for he loves to sip the sweets from the Dambergia that grows so luxuriantly over trellis and arch. But listen. Now the gentle-eyed, soft, grey-coated Wawa apes are waking in the forest. First, only one calls his fellows to the enjoyment of a new day's life. But his song is not long a solo, for his companions within earshot soon reply. Their call I purposely designate a song, for it is a pleasant musical sound heard from a distance, resembling the flow of water or the gurgling of a brook. Now the birds are chattering, the bulbul warbles a song to his favorite rose. The fresh wind stirs the feathery leaves of a clump of bamboo. The servants are up and about, busying themselves in household matters, so that soon the fragrant scent of coffee wafts in the breeze. Toast and eggs are ready in the veranda, where amidst pleasant surroundings in the cool, invigorating air, we take our early morning meal. The bright sunshine without and the gay flowers in the garden unfolding their fresh beauties for one's enjoyment. It would astonish people in England who have a fixed view that we in the tropics are always stewing in heavy moist heat if they could appreciate the fresh crispness of early morning which we often enjoy after a night's rain. It even approaches being cold sometimes. I speak comparatively, of course. And a tennis jacket or woolen shawl may even be a comfort until the sun has well warmed the earth. One of the main features of the book are the drawings that are actually in it. When I embarked upon the biography of Ada Pryor, I began to recreate scenes in Sandakan in the late 19th century in the form of etchings, which is my art practice. I've also included 6 designs of Murud basketware and 16 watercolor and sketches by a guy called William Prettyman, a colonial officer during the time of Ada. And you can see around me here are the 9 etchings, and I'm going to talk about one of them. But firstly, I wanted to talk about the watercolors. The first one is this gorgeous, exquisite watercolor here of Mount Kinabalu in Sabah. It's still relevant today. And I love this watercolor so much that I've made it the cover of my book. Here is another, also by William Prettyman, and it's called A Borneo Jungle. And you can see that what he has done is to make the distant jungle so ethereal and ghostly that really exploits the translucency of the medium. It's hard to believe that these watercolors are nearly 140 years old. Just by looking at its freshness, the color, and it's still relevant to this day. And lastly, I wanted to show you one of my etchings, which is the first etching on this picture here. It is of Sandakan, or Elapura, as they called it, in 1883 when Ada arrived. As you can see, the town was actually built on stilts over the sea. I'm afraid it doesn't quite look like that today, but there's still some of it on the sea. That's all we have actually time for. The book is actually available at my publishers, Opus Publications in Kota Kinabalu, and at the Garak Budaya bookshop in Penang. They both have online facilities. Thank you.
Catherine Menon is Australian-British, has Malaysian heritage, and lives in London. She is a university lecturer in robotics and has a PhD in pure mathematics and an MA in creative writing. Fragile Monsters is her debut novel. Her short story collection, Subjunctive Moods, was published by Dahlia Publishing in 2018. Her short stories have won or been placed in a number of competitions, including Fish, Bridport, Bear Fiction, and Short Fiction. Please welcome Catherine Menon.
Hi, I'm Catherine Menon, and it's great to be here taking part in Readings at Home. Thank you so much for having me. So today I'm going to be reading an excerpt from my debut novel, Fragile Monsters, which came out from Penguin on April the 8th. I'll be reading from the beginning of the novel. Chapter 1. Thursday, 7 p.m, 1985. Ayo, Durga, you went to Lechemani's for fireworks? Amuma glares at the bright red bag I'm lifting out of my car. The trip's only taken me an hour, but she's already moved her rattan chair to the veranda's edge to watch for me driving back into the compound yard. Her white widow's sari is immaculate and clean-starched, and her skinny thighs make a shallow, mounded lap. She spends nearly all her time on the veranda now, rocking back and forwards in the sleepy heat. That was the first shock about returning to Malaysia. Somewhere in the last decade, my grandmother's become old. Kill us all, she adds, these crazy ideas of yours, getting fireworks from the washerman. Or perhaps not that old. She likes proper fireworks, I remember. All noise and glare, with a spice of danger if you stick your nose in too far. It's raining, and my sandals slip on the limestone steps as I carry the bag up to her. Sweat trickles down under my nylon shirt. I've been back 2 months, but still can't remember how to dress for the climate here. I was going to drive to Kuala Lumpur and Mumma, I say, but Letchamani had a sign advertising fireworks, and I thought, covered market in Lipis for good fireworks only. You should know that, Durga. This mathematics rubbish you study, she mutters, not quite under her breath. All thinking and never common sense. She's fetched a plate of pandan cakes while I've been out, and she pushes them across the table towards me with a not-to-be-argued frown. I left home a decade ago, and Amuma's convinced I haven't eaten since. Granddaughters, she thinks, ought to stay where they've been put. Too late to change the fireworks now, also. She looks up at the evening sky. I'll have to manage. She's relishing this, like she does all small crises. Running out of onions can last her all day. Diwali puja will do now, she tells me briskly. Prayer first, then play fireworks, huh? What, light the fireworks now? Amuma, it's pelting down. I sit next to her on a small wooden bench that she ordered Karthika to move from the front room. I drove up from Kuala Lumpur 4 days ago, and the house still feels familiar and strange at once. My childhood home, but I can't quite manage to be sentimental about it. It's the wrong sort of home. Or perhaps I was the wrong sort of child. Just like on the day I left, the compound yard's flooding. There are puddles under the stone walls and a few dry patches near the biggest trees. The angsanas have lost most of their blossom in the rain, and the scatter of yellow petals makes me catch my breath. Another memory, one I hadn't even realised I'd forgotten, crouching behind those trees, playing five stones with Peony after school. Her laugh, her tangled hair, her ballpoint tattoos. In Canada, I pushed her out of my head, but back here in Pahang, she's everywhere I look. Friends forever, Durga, she whispers, and for a second I'm 15 again, and everything is about to go wrong. I take a deep breath, clenching my fists. Of all people, I should know Peony's gone. Dead and gone. Drowned in the banyan swamp 15 years ago, and nothing to be done about it. She's a null object. She's a zero module. She's the limit of an empty diagram. I unclench my hands and look deliberately over to the angsanas again. They've grown since those days, and there's nothing behind their trunks except a sodden crate of banana leaves for the dining table tonight. I'd forgotten this about Pahang, the way the rain gets under your clothes and under your skin. Durga, are you listening? Amuma prods. Of course we light the fireworks now. It's Diwali. When else is it we'll light them? Birthdays, Christmas, graduations. Next you'll be asking for eating non-veg tonight. But there's only us here to see them. I'm on edge, arguing when I know I shouldn't. Why bother just for us, and when it's raining too? I never did in Canada. Amuma sucks in her breath, then lets it out again in a shower of scolding words. It's a festival, she tells me, punctuating her sentences by slapping the broken wicker of her chair. How dare I suggest we ignore it? It's far more important than rain, she says, far more important than grandmothers even, and ungrateful granddaughters who have forgotten how they were raised. But you don't even believe in Lakshmi, Amuma. You never did. Diwali's for Lakshmi, a goddess who's supposed to visit the brightest and cleanest houses every year. Amuma doesn't hold with her, and never has. Some goddess, she says, to go poking her nose into other people's housekeeping. Story is important only, she insists. Doesn't matter if it's true. But you and fireworks are important too, for driving away evil spirits. Cannot tell, Durga, when a spirit is walking. She stops. There's a loud clang from the compound gate, then another. Someone's knocking. I can just make out a figure through the ironwork, Then an arm snakes down to open the catch. Who's visiting today? Amuma mutters to herself, and then the gate opens. A white man walks through, carrying a striped bag. He has a cap of combed brown hair that looks oddly familiar, and he's wearing a neatly tailored suit. "Mary, Auntie!" He ignores the mud and walks jauntily towards us, then sees me sitting next to Amuma. He stops, squinting against the evening light. His smile falters and loses its way. "Durga?" I start to shake. I know who he is, this man with his John Lennon hair. Peony's voice is in my head again. Friends forever. And this man is bad news, his worst news. He's 15 years old news, fresh as yesterday's eggs. Thank you very much for having me. I've enjoyed reading this, and I do hope that you enjoy Fragile Monsters. Thank you.
Liverpool Irish poet Lawrence Petner, MA, works full-time in Subang helping solo authors and mentoring poets towards their first collections. Poetry writing workshops and free Poet in Resonance schemes for individuals, institutions and businesses also figure. Having reached live audiences, journals and the BBC since 1979, 3 full poetry collections await publication. Plaudits come from Ted Hughes, Philip Gross, John Burnside, Carrie Etta and Wong Pui Nam. Please welcome Lawrence Petner.
Hello everybody, good to be back at readings. Please forgive the glare on my glasses. This time I've decided to read you some new material, including work in progress, having gone on at length about my 3 forthcoming collections. I spend long weekends out with my son Zeddiad, aged 2, named in this coming poem, in our local parks and neighbourhoods for 6 or 7 hours per day. Obviously, there are breaks of several hours in the middle for lunch and a postprandial nap. This first poem's from something I'm writing called the Zeddiad, which is my version of the Iliad. It's largely about my son's upbringing and some east-west thoughts and considerations. This first one combines all of that and borrows largely from a poem by Paul Muldoon. His is called Cradle Song for Asher, his daughter. Cradle Song for Zeddy. When they cut your birth cord yesterday, it was I who drifted away. Now I hear your name being said as yet another release of lead, and see far beyond your wicker cradle kampungs, cities, 2 whole continents flicker. He has unusual rhyme schemes, Paul Muldoon. He's no dull moon. This next one's also from the Zeddiad, and it's called Into Being. Countless the fallen coconuts I've meowed at, glanced at speed dimly lit. Who for these sudden squeaks? Not for the nuts, partly for Zeddy, partly for me. Above all, for the latent cat in every street scene. To see if the shoes massed outside houses will step up into cathood, puddles stretched to liquid feline states. That would be something and a half, to know what might catalyse their transmogrification. Here they are, purring in their fur in tropical heat. No sign of flinch or flight, these young street cats. The air around their slinky shapes and moves takes the latency as they rub up, hard, tough as boots, coats matted like coir. So next time you see old coconuts on the ground, spare a meow for them, for me. Now the second half of the following poem was what came to me when I was trying to write that one I've just read out. So this one might still be incomplete, and it's called Several Types of Emptiness. After 35 or 40 years of meditation practice, I tried writing a poem called 16 Types of Emptiness. It should contain luminosity too, the white, almost empty page. Aptly, yes, till KL life filled the infinite space. Quilo was a sure thing. Being seen and not heard was the whole of the ghosting game. Cats generate 45% over of the nation's latency, according to experts at KL's Space-Time University. Much of the rest revs in the probability of motorbikes stalling your crossing. There's always one more cat or bike to help check your hurry ad infinitum. The blank white page stared out at me like a presence or absence, or in between. The Zeddiad is mostly made up of prose pieces, and I'm not claiming they're prose poems, though some of them may reach that condition at some point through rewrites. But this is a diary piece, January 30th, 2021. Stick, tree, pencil, paper. I tried drawing a tree with Zeddy in the park today, having brought a pencil and a piece of paper out in the bottom of the pram or pushchair, especially. Zed tore the pencil out of my hand fairly quickly, after a minor hand and finger tussle. He's had a disproportionately strong grip right from birth. Zed's new mode from today is to try to insert sticks back into trees, as though he's found the tree they came from and is engaged in restorative endeavour, art even, naive art. All in all, it's as though Zed's saying that representing objects is not the way forward, more that of physically restoring and renewing, a sculptor on a mission, in tune with his generation's necessarily pragmatic eco-focus. Now, the explanation of this next one is surely a lot longer than the 8 lines I have so far on it, on the poem. It feels complete at the moment. I wrote the second half first, I'm happy with that. First half I've been writing only today. And it's been brewing since a visit to Madrid's Prado Gallery in 2005, spending an unplanned 3 hours with Picasso's Guernica, and then briefly reading some poetry by medieval Catalan poet Ausiàs March. His phrase got to me, locan volcan, flesh wants flesh. How pointedly punchy. Around 2015, the Spanish government in Madrid dug up the anachronistic charge of rebellion, so-called, upon the freedom fighters of Catalonia. Actually, it was much more recent, wasn't it? That really got to me and recalled March's quote. I won't get into it too much, but several other Western news events form the background here, broadly against bandwagoneering on any side of any debate. Maybe it's me, tendency of myself or something. Anyway, the second, so I've said that. Locan Volcan. Old brought new, still stirs endless splash. You put aside memories, but the waves feel like hemorrhage. What feeds flesh also wants flesh. Just as what feeds poetry feeds poultry, whatever feeds history feeds hysteria. And what feeds social change feeds me, 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 all the way home when bandwagons enter the square. The mixed metaphor here, splashing waves and bandwagons on the square, comes directly from the physical geography of Barcelona itself, where the popular beach, Barceloneta, is just 100 metres or so from Plaza Real in Barri Gothic, the Gothic neighbourhood of Ciutat Vella, the old city. Probably my favourite European city. I write about Europe a lot. Now, there are pros and cons to prose poems, and this one following is a prose poem. I've provisionally titled it. Titles are the hardest part, actually. find. Anyway, I've provisionally titled it Rain Poem In, Out, Above. It's not going to keep that title for long, is it? Fingers puddle lightly at the surface of our plastic kitchen roof like a jazz percussionist with brushes, the rain's prelude. This tropical weather is neither for us nor against us, as we are moved to describe Aedes mosquitoes or snakes. It draws the plants out of the red laterite earth, invokes them into becoming through the pattered mantras of their names: durian, rambutan, jackfruit, calamansi. We step outside for the briefest of reasons. I want to experience it, to let it be unforgettable. In grey Britain, we were oppressed lifelong by fruitless, half-arsed rain and the niggling days-long threat of more. Here, I'm happy to be wet and get it done with, just like the rain itself. A drum symphony with tympanum of thunder beats down with glass hammers along the whole row of plastic roofs. 7-foot storm drains fill to past halfway as we start to dance. Here it drums, and here comes the tropical lightning show. Time to get back under cover and watch from there. Saturated, our badges, clothes, cling like obstinate rambutan peel against our skin. And I think that's it. Thank you very much for listening and watching. Bye for now.
Our next reader is Chris Mooney Singh. Chris was born in Australia but settled as a PR in Singapore. He has published several collections of poetry and appeared in several fiction anthologies. He's widely published in newspapers, journals and zines, and was commended in the 2015 Victorian Premier's Literary Awards for unpublished fiction. Dr. Mooney Singh holds a PhD in creative writing and teaches in the MA Creative Writing program at La Salle College of the Arts. With a background in radio production, these days he enjoys making short films and producing his own podcast stories. Finally, Chris Mooney Singh is well known as the founder of Poetry Slam in Singapore and introducing it to Malaysia in 2007 and at readings. Wonderful. In addition, he has mentored 3 Young Artist of the Year awards.
Hi there. Greetings from Singapore. Today, my story starts from Australia, where I come from, though I am settled permanently in Singapore, and it travels to Asia. So let's get into it. Stenciling the world map upside down for an assignment altered Stuart MacArthur's life forever. Australia was north and Asia was centre, with Europe and the Americas reversed and consigned to the margins. Old Hornet tore up the drawing in frenzy. "You are either insolent or stupid. You really don't know your eyeballs from your arsehole, MacArthur. Redo it." Stuart's class tittered. The 12-year-old's eyes began to water. Reversing the map had seemed logical enough from an Antipodean point of view, yet innovation had brought only teacher anger and peer ridicule. It was the worst day of his life. Stuart went to Japan for an exchange visit. An indoor lad, his favourite pastime was flicking through books of maps. Stuart excelled in Japanese class and adopted the local customs like ojiki, which means to bow. To improve his conversation skills, Stuart spent more time with Japanese friends than the American students who were also on this exchange program. The Americans felt insulted. "You are always kowtowing, MacArthur. Shake hands like a man," they goaded with stupid kangaroo jokes, branding him the blunder from down under. Silently wounded, he would go to sit under the cherry blossoms, open his atlas, and turn the world on its head. On December 7th of that year, the Apollo 17 moon mission took the iconic blue marble photo of the Earth. The trajectory of the command module's flight deck aligned with an inverted Antarctica. NASA, in observance with government policy, published it right side up. Like everyone, Stewart scrutinized the image closely and noted the lame claim that a handheld Hasselblad camera clicking away upside down accounted for the reversed image. Unfazed, our budding map nerd discerned that there is no true north for a heavenly body orbiting spherically in outer space. It was an aha moment, and he smiled like a Zen Roshi. Back home and now enrolled as an undergraduate in the School of Geography, Stewart could now indulge himself in the study of ornate maps of continents and oceans with sailing ships and here-be-dragon monsters drawn by plunderers who charted trade routes to new worlds. He studied how cogitators created belief systems promulgating the racial superiority of North over South, while the octopus-like West, seeking to orient itself for profit, invented the East. Stewart's thesis explored Flemish cartographer Gerardus Mercator and his quest to make the world look right by dividing everything into meridians running north to south with corresponding east and west demarcations. In this manner, Stewart went gleefully into map geekery, designing a plan to put right the cartographical sins of the past. Although Mercator had produced his Eurocentric map for the age of world domination, the 200 sovereign nations across the globe now needed a world map not conceived by powerful money, dogmatic religions, spider web cultures, or third world exploiters. Modern times needed an atlas offering parity for all people. Stewart contemplated a borderless globe with new silk roads as pathways for mutual interdependence. With this vision, he graduated with distinction and humour. On Australia Day in 1979, the upside-down cartographer student published MacArthur's universal corrective map, where the east was now the west and the south was north of the equator. On it, he printed, "This is the first step in the long overdue crusade to elevate our glorious but neglected nation from the gloomy depths of anonymity in the world power struggle to its rightful place, towering over its northern neighbours, reigning splendidly at the helm of the universe. No longer will the South wallow in a pit of insignificance, carrying the North on its shoulders for little or no recognition for her efforts. Finally, South emerges on top. South is superior. South dominates. Long live Australia, ruler of the universe!" 350,000 upside-down map sales later, his childhood vision had been realized.
Dear Stuart, how's life down under? It's been years since we hosted you here on campus. I return to your upside-down hypothesis when everything feels absurd and I want to shake up lazy minds. Even though you have left academia, I have to tell you about the recent symposium I organized. Another conference was sharing our facility. The cheeky Aussie contingent was bidding for next year's hosting rights. They had your upside-down map taped to our whiteboard. Of course, I thought of you. Seeing Australia there on top, I chuckled audibly, then had to debate with the group about globalization, geopolitics, climate change and how our avaricious policies are contributing to so much wanton waste, destruction, and instability. And we still think we are the world's savior. The reality is that America is regularly thought of as the chief asshole imperialist of this day and age. Yes, my unplanned session, elaborating upon your fresher-than-ever map, certainly hit the foreign policy nerve. Unfortunately, my map rant rubbed a few colleagues up the wrong way. It's sad. We Americans pay only lip service to international perspectives. Deep down, my country is too invested in wanting to stay the top crocodile. We still have a long way to go. Anyway, as always, you have my undying respect and gratitude. I remain your down-under ally above the equator. Peter.
I hope you enjoyed the story. Think about maps and turn them upside down. And to finish, from the macro world of maps to the micro world of ants.
I am just one of a gang, 1,000 movable mandibles, rubbing thorax to red thorax with purpose, to crop, to crimp, to chew and glue, two sides of a leaf cathedral together. The higher-ups send down the orders, and then we're off, marching and singing to engineer another leaf horn cornucopia, trumpeting up the jungle jazz. Chain of command. See my jaws of silk in a dewdrop. Tick my attendance in the scheme of things. I am a pest controller of the citrus orchard, a waterproofer of nursery nests, the tiniest sweat worker in the emerald forest. I'm a little link in the chain of command. Chain of command. Chain of command.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed my piece today, as I've enjoyed all the others in the show.
You may remember in the previous edition of Readings that Malachi Edwin Vathamani introduced some of the poets in this wonderful collection, Malaysian Millennial Voices. This is a collection of very young poets, most of them being published for the first time, and it's tremendously encouraging to see poetry alive and well and of really good quality in Malaysia. So today we've got another of the poets from this book. This is Zulfiquri Ahmad. Zulfiquri took a big leap of faith in 2016 by pursuing a postgraduate creative writing studies in the University of Nottingham, Malaysia, after finishing his engineering degree in South Korea. During the one-year program, he developed both skills and love for poetry. It's so nice to have you read for us today, Zulfiquri, and keep writing.
Hello, this is Zulfiquri Ahmad, and today I'm going to read 4 of my poems published in the Malaysian Millennial Voices. A little bit of introduction about myself. I studied engineering in South Korea, and then after I came back, I decided that I want to do something related to creative writing. So I pursued my master's in creative writing, and then I started writing a lot of poems and short stories after that. My poems are normally in syllabic verses, and they are It is written during my Raya holiday a couple of years ago, so here it goes. It is Raya morning and we are heading to the graveyard to mourn the death of our unknown grandfathers. Better go early before it's too hot. The shades are scarce in the land of forgotten corpses. The sun will burn any bear scalp. We hop around the graveyard, trying our best not to step on the unmarked tombs. We don't want to offend any ghost. Poor remains. The poor tombs, we scratch and slap our legs while reading few annual verses from the holy book. We have no idea what we are reciting, but we never bother to know. We only want to leave this place and return the scarves and songkok to the mothballs in the chest. So the second poem that I will read today is called Warga Emas, which can be translated into senior citizen. I wrote this poem for my mother, so here it goes. Mother's hair is silver during her golden days. She deserves more than that. I'm planning to melt down her little pusaka bracelet and coat every strand of her hair with it. Mother should be stunning in her golden days, but instead, she has been swallowed up by the smell of latex from her sarong. The third poem that I will read is called Hazel Flowers. I wrote this poem after reading a news in the newspaper regarding a child abuse case in Malaysia. I plant the hazel that father bought me inside my beating heart. I cage it with my ribs to keep the flowers safe from his punches and kicks on my chest. I water it with tears and black coffee 3 times a day. I breathe in his remaining love so it won't suffocate. I use his corn and curses as the manure. I did everything, but it won't erect and bloom again. The last poem that I will read today is called Santa's Funeral. It was a white Christmas morning when father called me. I was with my friends, observing a foreign festival in a foreign land thousands of miles away from home. Father's voice was cold. When death broke into our house last night, it took away not only our grandma, but also the light bulb, her favorite cup in the cabinet, and the last drops of honey on her daughter's lips. They are crying, yes, but the tears are for their mother's massive durian orchard near the mosque, the faded gold bangle that she wore to her deathbed, and the house wrecked by a burglar the previous night. Grandma passed away on Christmas Eve, and her funeral is Christmas party. She is the Santa Claus, but instead of a red winter wear, she is still in her sarong that accompanied her to meet death. Grandma lies on the bed untouched, while her favorite cup flies in the air, hits the light bulb, and turns the wooden house into a dark place filled with greedy sobbing daughters. Thank you for listening. Bye.
So, we've reached the end for today. I would like to thank Param for putting the video together and all our readers. Don't forget that the previous videos recorded since last March are available on YouTube, so make sure you get your fix of Malaysian writing. And don't forget to buy books by local authors to support them. Thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you again at the end of next month. Thank you.